Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Monday's edition of EATV. We're back here with our weekly sports roundup. Really pleased to be able to bring you a really action-packed episode this afternoon. We have a discussion on what our potential British and Irish Lions team could look like this summer. We have, to celebrate International Women's Day, we've got two of our most inspirational women members of staff here to join us for a question of sports style quiz. Definitely one not to miss. We've got a discussion around fundraising for the My Name's Doddy Foundation and some absolutely outstanding efforts that went in during the lockdown period. And then we have, once again, our roving reporter, Mr. Richie Gardner, to close out the show. So because we have so much, without further ado, let's get cracking. I'm really delighted to bring back my expert panel that we had last Monday for such an insightful Six Nations discussion. We've got Mr. Mayer, we've got Mr. Stewart, we've got David McRae, we've got Finn Cunningham, and this week we also have Mr. McFarlane for what is going to be a very interesting debate. Now, gentlemen, thank you for joining me once again this week. You have all been hard at work since the middle of last week, thinking about if you were the coach and you were Warren Gatland, what would your British and Irish Lions selection look like? Now, having seen these, I think there are some contentious issues that are about to come our way, and hopefully we can have a good debate and discussion around what we would look like. Now, the thing that I'm interested in is how many Scots are going to make this trip. So, Mr. McFarlane, we're going to come to you first. Off the top of your head, give me a number. How many Scots are going on the British and Irish Lions tour?
6.
Oh, big numbers to kick off. Mr. May, you looked unsure about that 6. Are you going higher or lower?
I'm going higher. I think there'll be 8, maybe.
Okay. Mr. Stewart, higher or lower?
I'm going to go lower. I'm going to go 4.
Okay. Now, the people who really know their stuff, the players themselves, what are we thinking, David and Finn? David, how many Scots are going to be included in that touring party, do you think?
I think 5 on tour.
5 on tour. How many then in the test team?
2 or 3, I think.
Okay. And then Finn, what about you to round us out?
I'm thinking 6 will go, and then 3 or 4 to start in the test.
Okay, so I think we've got an interesting debate here. Now, we are obviously very biased here at Edinburgh Academy because we want as many Scots as possible to be in that team. But I know that we've got some real rugby aficionados in front of us here. So let's bring some of those teams onto the screen and hopefully spark that debate. I'm going to just pose some questions when these teams come up. So first and foremost, Mr. Mayer, your thoughts around Owen as the captain here. There's been lots of debates and discussions around who might captain. Maybe we could even have the potential of a Scotsman captaining that team. Why have you gone for Owen as the captain of the Lions?
Because he was the only guy I thought that could lead the side. There are captaincy candidates from other nations, so I don't think we'll get in the team. I actually think that if Gatland's picking on form, then it might be a team like this. So, for example, Sexton, if he's picking on form, Sexton probably won't start. Farrell certainly won't start. If he's picking just a team to beat the Springboks, then there is a better chance of the likes of Sexton starting. If Sexton starts, I think he's probably captain. Wyn Jones is the obvious other captain option. I don't think he will make the starting lineup. I can explain why later if you like. So looking at that side, I think the captain will probably come from either Owen or Jamie George, possibly if Jamie George is the hooker. I think there's every chance that he would be captain. So Ken Owen, because he leads he's a provincial captain. He has captained Wales in the past. This idea that you pick a tour party captain and he plays every test is no longer the case. It wasn't the case in New Zealand. So, for example, there's a possibility that they could have a tour party captain out of the 39 or 37 players that are picked, but he won't necessarily captain in the tests. to Ken Owen because I think he's probably the form hooker at the moment. And looking at that side, I think he's probably the most sensible leader. Need a forward.
Two other things to pick up on before we jump to our next team. Obviously, the inclusion of 3 Scots there. 2, I think many would agree with, in Hogg and at Russell at 10. Now, your selection of Ali Price might be hotly contested. So I suppose first question on that is this because of the Price-Russell combo?
Yeah,
or is
absolutely.
it an out the best?
Well, I think he's probably the form 9 at the moment in the tournament. There have been injuries that have taken others out. I think on a Lions tour, one of the key things you've probably got to do is to pick units because you have less preparation time. So people who are comfortable playing with each other, Henshaw and Ringrose being an example of that, Wyn Jones and Owen at loosehead and hooker being an example of that, and Ali Price and Finn Russell at halfback an example of units who know each other. I think Price's game has really come on in the last Six Nations, particularly his kicking game. I think he's less frantic at the base than he was in the past. I think he looks at Lions 9. I personally think that Ben Spencer's probably the best 9 in the Six Nations at the moment, but he's not even in Eddie Jones's squad. Williams is decent at Wales, although he's been injured and he's a little bit ponderous from the base. He's a bit too physical, I think. And if you're going to play the box, if you're taking them on physically, is just it would be a fool's errand. You're not going to win a tournament by a Lions series by taking the box on physically. So you need real speed off the base.
And Mr. Mayor, our eagle-eyed viewers will probably have noticed that you've sat on the fence a little bit with one of your selections and not managed to narrow it quite down to 15. We've got, you're unsure between Henshaw and Tuilagi. Why is that?
Yeah, I think Tuilagi's fit. He plays because he's incredibly physical. I like Robbie Henshaw as well. I think it's not out of the question that Henshaw and Tuilagi might be the centre partnerships. I also think you could put North in at 13. I think Harris and Ringrose and Slade are all very similar players. I think Harris has been outstanding, actually. Slade and Ringrose possibly slightly better in an attacking sense. I think Slade or Ringrose you could play at 13. But again, I think you're going to need size to play against the box. And I think Henshaw and Tuilagi through the middle would probably be the way to go. And looking at the back three, I think 2 of the tests are at altitude. I think 2 of them are in Johannesburg. So the box will kick long and they'll kick a lot. And for that to be the case, you need a really reliable back three under the ball. Williams is outstanding under the ball, so is Watson. Hogg less so, but you can't not pick Hogg at the moment. And someone like May, less secure under the high ball. Reece Zammit, less secure under the high ball. So that's the back three. I think if Tuilagi's fit, I think he's going to be back in 2 or 3 weeks. Then I think there's every chance he might get a starting spot.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, kicking us off with some brilliant info. If anyone is viewing and watching on YouTube, don't forget that you have the opportunity to comment. So if you're not sure about any of these decisions or these inclusions, get your comments in and we'll get back to them. But while we're at that, we'll jump to our next team and just pick out some highlights, if we can fire that up on screen to begin with. Now, Mr. Stewart, you've gone for a similar looking team in some areas, obviously with the inclusion of Hamish Watson at 7, and you've gone for Murray at 9 rather than Price. What made that decision to bring in Watson at 7?
When I made my team up, I was looking at sort of what was going to be the philosophy. What is this team's philosophy? And I think Mr. Mayor hit the nail on the head. You can't take the Springboks on with power. It's got to be about pace. It's got to be about leadership, and it's got to be about experience as well. So a balance of pace and leadership within the team. That's where I went for Conor Murray. Experience, leadership. If he's fit and he's playing well, he's your man from that point of view. And as for Watson, I just think with Hamish Watson, he just brings a really fast, aggressive style to the game that I think will do really well in the opening minutes of a test match against the Springboks. So he can go hard for 60, 70 minutes. We'll get a huge amount, and then you've got guys like Tipuric to come off the bench. I think it's actually more interesting the bench and the options that you've got in the last 20 minutes of the test match, which is why one of the reasons I went for Sexton on the bench. If you're looking for someone to come on and get your drop goal to win the series, then there's your man.
Now, what I find really interesting is how teams are put together. So you've now got someone who is pretty quicksilver, a little bit unpredictable in Russell at 10, alongside some players who play in an Eddie Jones England team, which is very much structure and game plan based. How do you see this team actually fitting together to find success, Mr. Stewart?
It's such a big question, isn't it? How you get the teams to fit together? I guess you've got to look at the players in the Eddie Jones setup and think, well, what are they capable of as well? What are they capable of in their clubs and the style of play that they play as individuals? And you look at the back three, you look at guys like Johnny May, Liam Williams, Stuart Hogg. That's a frightening back three. I mean, there's some serious pace there, but really experienced Test match players. And you look at the Irish centres and Ringrose and Henshaw. Again, what would they do of Russell ball as opposed to Sexton ball or whoever? And that's one of the great things about a Lions tour is we just don't know until we see it. And who'd have thought, in '97, you'd have had Tate and Guscott and Gibbs, and then Townsend as the 10. So I think that's one of the really exciting things about a Lions tour is you can put these players in and say, well, what will it be like? What will happen? It'll be just fascinating to see.
I think 97, Mr. Stewart, I was very much still a young gun, only 6 years old. So it's probably a good way to move on to the next young gun, Mr. McFarlane. Here you were still in your youth in 97. So what are your thoughts and what are the big selections that kind of stick out for you?
Yeah, I mean, as always, Lions is as exciting before the tour as it is actually on tour. The debates over who you pick, who'd be in your team, just endless. And I've been going around in circles with my team. I think a big decision a big factor that's not been mentioned so far is who's going to be your kicker, because Russell, I'm not fully convinced yet in what could be really tight games. If the South Africans just go for an arm wrestle, then that could be a big difference, and that's what has made me pick Farrell at 12 reluctantly. But just not quite trusting Russell. But I want Russell in there. I think he should be in there. I think is what everyone wants to see from exciting rugby. But I have put Farrell in at 12, even though he's not on form. He's not going to get huge amounts of game time before that. But I really just wanted a kicker in there. Interesting to hear Mr. Mayor's debate on 9 with Price. I think that was probably the hardest position to pick because I think it may be the weakest collectively. A lot of the other tough decisions were because there were so many strong candidates. But I just thought at 9 there isn't a standout. I've gone for Thomas Williams because I think he's just played well the last couple of games I've seen him play as well. And going for Hogg as captain, again, could have gone for Wyn Jones. Wyn Jones was a late decision for me to put him in ahead of Itoje, but just because of Itoje's poor form recently, but I don't think he's a guaranteed starter. And I think Hogg I've been really impressed with how he's stepped up. He's put his hand up to lead Scotland, and I think he will bring the others with him and unite the different nations together.
As a very passionate Scot, Mr. McFarlane, I'm delighted to see a good number of Scots in your team, which we haven't seen in the first two. Talk me through that inclusion of Sutherland.
Yeah, the front row isn't my area of expertise. So I was hoping you'd ask Mr. Stewart for his views on the front row as with a bit more experience. Sutherland scrums brilliantly. He seems to win penalties at the scrum. He's been on form. Could have picked a few people in there, but just went for him without huge amounts of front row scrummaging knowledge, I'll admit.
Well, and the thing I'm loving the most here is actually Hogg as captain. Now, as someone who doesn't know much about rugby, but very, very passionate about sport, I was unsure about Stuart Hogg as a captain early in his career in that role. But I've seen a really mature Stuart Hogg so far in this Six Nations, someone who has really risen to the task, almost kind of exudes an air of calm. What do you think in a captaincy role someone like him could bring to the Lions?
But I think the Lions is such a brilliant spectacle that you get all of these players coming together for what is a relatively short period of time. And watching all the brilliant documentaries of previous Lions tours where you see the team bonding, you see the importance of that. It's not just lip service to it. And I think Hogg can bring that together. I think he's positive. I think he's engaging. I think he'd really buy into it. There was talk previously of Farrell potentially being a captain, but I think he'd go the other way. I think he'd get people to go with him. And also just lead by example up front on the pitch, which is also crucial.
And then we're going to jump on to the real young guns here in terms of their team selection. Now, there are, I suppose I can tell everyone who's viewing that Mr. McFarlane, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Mayor haven't actually seen the selections that Finn and David have made here. And there's potentially a couple of contentious ones, which we'll pick up on. We'll go to the wing first and foremost, and the inclusion of Duhan van der Merwe. Where's that idea come from, gents?
Finn, go for this one.
Well, he's been class for Edinburgh the past few seasons in the Pro 14. I think it's like most line breaks, furthest carries, and then he just sort of has that ability to sort of create something, or just get past the extra defender. And we sort of get with this try against England, he had about 4 defenders trying to tackle him, and he still got over. And although he might not have as much experience, I think by the end of the Six Nations, he should be able to cope with the Lions.
Now, the interesting thing for me, David, and I'll bring you in to answer on this one, is that everyone else has alluded to the physicality of the Springboks and the way that they'll play the game. So defence is going to be a massive, massive part of a successful Lions tour. How do you think someone like a Duhan will be able to kind of stand up to defensive needs against a team like South Africa?
Yeah, that was the one concern I had. Me and Finn both agreed Duhan should be in the starting 15, but you get Duhan van der Merwe up against someone like Cheslin Colby, and you're thinking that's a bit of a mismatch. But I think he offers so much in attack, and with the balance it brings the back line with another big carrier, I think his attacking potential sort of outweighs his potential defensive weakness.
Mr. Mayor, we'll bring you in there because I think you've got a comment to make.
I'm picturing my mind's eye Pollard bombing Van der Merwe all afternoon, and it just turning into an absolute nightmare for him. I think he's quite an exciting runner over kind of 30 meters, but I'd question whether I think if he was in the starting lineup, Cheslin Colby in attack and Pollard as a kicker would get very excited.
Mr. Stewart, anything that you see in that team that just screams out of you, screams out of you saying bad idea?
You put it back up again for me to have another look. I'll find something. I mean, it's interesting. I'm not convinced about you're putting Simmons in at 8. He's playing outstanding rugby in the Premiership, and everyone's screaming for him to get a call for England. To put him straight into a Lions Test 15, not sure. That would be the one. And obviously, I agree with Mr. Mayor on the VDM. Not 100% sure that.
Yeah, someone that's not been picked out so far would be Johnny Gray, who's popped up here. I mean, David Finn, you want to talk us through that decision as we start to wrap up this?
I'd like to talk about forward first.
Yeah,
I'd
like you to talk about forward.
Why I think George Ford should be 10 for the Lions, because from a fan's perspective, I agree with all three of you that I'd like to see Finn Russell playing for the Lions. I think he's the most exciting player to watch in the world at times. But I'm thinking from Warren Gatland's perspective, to win 3 test matches, can you rely on Finn Russell? And I think Mr. McFarlane touched on it with the goal kicking. Is Finn Russell a good enough goal kicker to play 3 tests? I'm not sure. And would I have Farrell and Russell playing together? I'm not sure how that relationship would go. So I think that's probably off the cards in my view. And then I think for me, Ford is probably the most underrated player in the Six Nations at the moment. I think he's not world class. I don't think he's the best fly half in the Six Nations. But if you're thinking about a player that can bring other players into the game, I think he's probably the best passer of the ball. And with that sort of backline, I think that could be a very logical, safe option for Gatland this summer.
I think that's what Gatland wants question is a really interesting one. Because I think Gatland will start with Sexton at 10. I think he'll probably start with Vunipola at 8. It's what Gatland wants is it's picking. I agree. I think Ford is a beautiful passer of the ball. I think Gatland's probably got in mind that his starting team already, and I think it's a matter of people really playing themselves out of it. I think he'll start with Sexton. I think he'll start with Vunipola. And I don't think he should, but I think that's probably the way he'll go, because it's what he wants. And I suspect someone like Ford is more in Gatland's mind than Finn Russell at the moment. I think there'd be outrage. I mean, if you don't want Finn Russell to start in a Lions series, then you've got no rugby in your soul. You know what I mean? It would just be fantastic, but I don't think Gatland will.
Mr. McFarlane, to pull you in here, we've Mr. Stewart's had to unfortunately drop off with us this afternoon. If you were to rate and rank the top 5 tens in the British Isles, would Ford make that?
No. I mean,
who's ahead of him for you?
Marcus Smith, for starters.
There is a different debate over what Gatland's going to do and what it is now and form. I mean, we could talk about form at the moment, but we're still months away. Form could easily change. So we've got to have some excitement. Russell, I think, better than Ford. I think Sexton, I think bigger. I think Farrell's probably better than Ford. I think probably David McRae, he might be better than Ford. No, actually, I do rate Ford, but I saw that selection and it made me yawn a little bit. He doesn't excite me. But I mean, he's obviously quality. He's obviously good, but I just think there are better options there. And for a Lions debate, I think going for spark and excitement is what I'm after.
I think one of the interesting things that's come out of this discussion so far is that balance is going to become so important. Try and find balance in that side to make sure you get the best out of so many people. But I certainly wouldn't want to be Warren Gatland and making this decision. To put you on the spot just before we finish and move on to our next feature, Mr. Mayor, there are 3 Lions tests. What's the overall score going to be?
I'm not. It's difficult because South Africa haven't played for so long. Springboks haven't played for so long, but their starting 8 will be the same starting 8 that played the World Cup final, and it'll just be brutal. That second row of Vermeulen, Estebet and Diago, Vermeulen at 8. Peter Steph du Toit is a blindside. It's just Malcolm Marx. It's a brutal pack. If the Lions can cope with them physically, then I think the Lions. I don't know. I think it could be 2-1 to the Lions, but I just worry that Gatland will go. I worry he'll go Murray, Sexton, and Wyn Jones and go bulk and try to play Warren ball, and it won't work against the Boks as it did against New Zealand. So I think I'd say Boks 2-1, 3-0, possibly.
So 3 potential outcomes there: either 2-1 to the Lions, 2-1 to South Africa, or 3-0.
No. Sorry, 2-1 to the Boks, or 2-1 to the Boks, or 3-0 to the Boks. Okay,
Mr. McFarlane, how about you?
3-0 Lions. Go on.
I like that. Finn?
I'd agree with Mr. Mayor. If it's this year, I think it gives the Lions more hope just because South Africa haven't played. But I think our pack just can't cope with the Springboks. I think we'll lose 2-1.
2-1. And David, to finish us up.
I think it depends who Gatland picks, but I think the Lions have enough quality to win, and I'll say 2-1 Lions.
2-1 Lions. Well, I like that. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Now, it's really good to be able to line us up for the proper battle, which we're about to see next, which is our quiz for International Women's Day. So thank you to the 4 of you for joining us this afternoon, and I'm sure this debate will rage on offline. Now, the real Titanic battle, Miss Osvitanen off screen has been using her trash talk, I think, to prepare us for this. But I know that there's quite a bit of a rivalry between you two.
Well, I just like to say you put me up against possibly the most competitive person I've ever met in my life. I mean, I have seen her play hockey. She's absolutely lethal. I've seen her play tennis. She's very competitive in that. Can't even play tennis.
Can't even play tennis. You've got
very,
Give it your best.
Very competitive person, Miss O. Happy International Women's Day, Miss O, and Mr. Duncan.
Exactly. I don't know why, Mr. Duncan, you've pitted us against each other. As women, we
Well,
like to, work together.
Well, I think one of the big things about a day like this is we get to celebrate inspirational women, and what better way to do that than putting them head to head? So, thank you for joining me, ladies. We're going to go through a little bit of a sports quiz. Now, for everyone who's watching, the competitive nature of both of these individuals has come through since Friday when I've received multiple messages trying to get a heads up on the questions.
I think that's
Obviously, having to stay true to Mrs. Abson as member of the sports department, so very
Didn't
much
give
want
me
her to
any
win here, Miss
answers.
O. But I have not given her any answers at all. So we're going to fire up on screen, and we'll get into this. Now, the way that this is going to happen is we will take it in turns, okay? So we're going to go flashbacks, and if we roll on to the next slide, please, Mr. Willis, in the background.
flashbacks. I feel like Mrs. Abson's got a bit of a...
Okay, so Miss O, with age being on your side in terms of being the younger of the two competitors, who do you think this is?
Tiger Woods?
Okay, Tiger Woods. All right, we'll go for the second one. Miss O, again for you.
Oh, that's hard.
That is a hard one.
No, I can't picture anyone. I can't even think.
Mrs. A, we pass over to you if she's not got an answer.
Well, I did get Tiger Woods. I'm thinking it's a footballer, but no, I'm not sure. It's not David Beckham. Any clues?
No clues. Clues don't exist.
A footballer.
That would be a clue, Miss O. I think we're going to call it a big loss, right? We're going to move on to the third one, Miss O, because Miss Sampson, you'll be on the next slide.
Oh.
Come on.
Is she Scottish?
Now you know that I'm not even going to give you that clue.
Oh, come on. I'll cross country. Who's doing that? That's hard work.
That is hard.
That's hard work.
As a guess, I'll go Liz McColgan.
Oh, Liz McColgan. Okay, right. Let's see how many you got out of 3, Miss O. We'll jump on to the next slide. Oh, sorry. We'll go for the answers after that. Mrs. Appleson, we'll let you roll in, right, and do your ones, the thrills of live TV here.
I have to just
All
say,
right,
with that last slide, I do remember those Jim P knickers. They should never, they should be outlawed, never to be seen again. They're just appalling. I think that is Dina Ash Smith. I think that one.
Okay, right. Second one.
I'll go Venus Williams.
Oh, it's a 50-50 on that one, isn't it?
And
who's this?
Is it Djokovic?
You're going for Djokovic?
Yeah.
I feel like she got an easier board second time round.
Well, I don't know about that. Well, let's fly through. So we've each had our opportunity. Let's see what the results say on the next slide. So Miss O, you went for Tiger Woods, then you had no idea, then you went Liz McColgan.
Yep.
So let's see.
Torres.
So we've got Tiger Woods, Fernando Torres in the middle, looking very young. You can picture it now, though, can't you?
Yeah.
And then Paula Radcliffe on the outside. I thought that was a gimme. Thought that was a gimme. So 1 point for you, Miss O, and then Mrs. Abson. Let's see how you fared.
Serena.
You're going to kick yourself here.
Oh,
Serena. Serena and Onji Agassi. So it's 1-0 to Miss O as we jump on to round 2. So 1-0, go on to round 2.
Oh, disaster.
Right, spot the star. Mrs. Abson, you went second last time, so you'll go first this time. There are 3 famous sports people who have been jumbled up to make this picture. Can you pick them?
Now, I'm terrible at this one on the actual proper question of sport. I know it's a footballer at the top.
Okay.
I and underneath is an athlete. Just the names aren't coming to me.
Just names.
Yeah.
30 seconds. I'm going to push you for these names.
Don't need to know
Remember,
this.
Miss O is 1-0 up.
She is 1-0 up. I am going to say Ferdinand. Oh, I don't think it is Ferdinand. And athlete. And then I think underneath, I think that's tennis again.
I love
Oh,
that
I
you're
don't-
saying sports, but not at all.
I can't think the names. I got the sports.
Like a tennis player.
I can't think the names. No, I'm going to have to pass on that.
Right, Miss O, do you want to jump in with any of these?
I would have said top one, maybe Ronaldo. In the middle,
Ronaldo,
is it Usain Bolt or Michael Johnson? I agree with athlete.
Okay, and then
I don't know about
who would you think the bottom is?
No, I don't know about the bottom, but yeah.
Okay, right. So we've got that. So Mrs. Abson, you weren't able to get the top. You went for Rio Ferdinand in the middle, and you weren't able to get the bottom. So we shall see. Next slide,
rub it
please.
in.
Right, Miss O, you're on. Who have we got here?
Oh, that's that footballer, the pink hair.
Oh, I need a name, Miss O.
I know. I think her name's maybe Megan. Megan begins with an F. Megan.
Okay.
Something. Middle. Who is the middle? I almost need to do this to see if I can see them separated. And then is the bottom Dina Asher-Smith?
Okay, so you've gone for Dina Asher-Smith. You've gone for Megan at the top. Mrs. Abson, we'll pass over that middle one to you because Miss O doesn't have an answer.
No.
I also know it's Megan Rapinoe. I think she might just have said Megan.
Yeah, I said
Okay.
not hear the Rapinoe.
No, I didn't.
Which one, Mr. Duncan? Sorry,
The middle one, Mrs. Appleson.
It's definitely Dina, isn't it? On the underneath. Boris Becker.
I thought you were going to say Boris Johnson there for a moment. Okay, so you've gone Boris Becker. Right, can we have the answers, please? All right, back to Miss O. You went on the first slide.
Ronaldo.
So we had
Oh,
Ronaldo.
well
And Miss O,
done.
you were able to steal that one. So point for you. You were also able to steal Usain Bolt in the middle. And then Dame Catherine Granger at the bottom.
Okay.
Right, so 2 to you, Miss O there. On to
That's
Mrs.
it.
Appleson. Come on.
I'm not
And
doing
then-
well.
Oh.
Megan Rapinoe,
Chris
so that's a
Hoy.
half point each. Chris Hoy and then Dina Asher-Smith. So, Miss O, flying ahead here.
Flying ahead.
here. 4.5 to a half. Now,
Oh,
we've got our
come
final
on, Miss
questions.
Thomason.
We've got our final questions coming up in the next one before we wrap up. So I'm aware that you need to get back to class, Miss O. This is our final round.
Minutes.
She's never going to
Right.
let me forget this.
Nope.
We're going to go for the spinner. So can we have this spun, please, Mr. Willis? All right, and let's see who's going to go first here. All right, let's see.
Pressure's
Oh,
on.
the suspense. And stop the spinner.
Oh,
Right, spin again, and stop. Right, Mrs. A, you're up first. So you get the odd questions. Miss O, you're the even questions. 4.5 to a half is the score. Are we ready? Right, Mrs. Appleson.
Yes, I'm ready.
Right, if there is an incorrect answer, we will immediately pass over if you can't get one. Right, number one. How many points is a touchdown worth in the NFL?
Touchdown is 7.
Okay, you've gone for 7. Right, number 2, Miss O.
how many Wimbledon singles does Nadal have? Ooh, 5.
Okay, she's gone 5. Question number 3.
Manchester City. No idea.
Right, Miss O, number 4. Best answer, though. You don't want to pass them over.
If either of the companies Japan beat.
I mean, this isn't hard.
Canada.
Canada. Okay, question 5. Back to you, Mrs. A. Need some big points here. This is your ball game.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to pass that. I'm gonna have to pass
Oh, Miss
that.
O.
Name 3 UK netball franchise teams.
And we both play netball.
I know.
Also gonna pass.
Still get to see much
Double
on the
pass.
telly.
Right, number 6, Miss O, you're back on.
Okay. Where are the Olympics to be held in 2028? I mean, we've not even had the 2020 Olympics yet.
But we know that Paris is 224. What's 228?
What's after that? Let's go for. It's coming back to London.
Okay, okay. Question 7. I love that. I think we know if it was come back to London. Where might you use the word bagel? Which sport, Mrs. A?
Oh God, is it something like curling or something?
Okay.
Can
Question 8.
I say tennis.
Are you? Do you think
Love,
Mrs. Sampson's
six
wrong?
Love, six love. That's what bagel is, Mrs. Appleton.
Okay. Number 8. Number 8, Miss O, you're back on.
Which sport could you win the Stanley Cup?
Stanley Cup.
I'm torn between 2.
Go for
Come
it.
on, you got to pick one.
I'm torn between rugby union and golf.
Okay. I'm going to pass that over.
Okay, harsh.
What's the question?
Which sport can you win the Stanley Cup, Mrs. Appleton?
I think Stanley Cup is hockey. But that's
What form of hockey?
oh.
I'm going to need to push you for that. We live in a cold country.
How many forms of hockey do we have?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Outdoor.
Field or ice?
Outdoor.
Indoor. Yeah. Field. Yeah.
Ice hockey.
Ice hockey.
Ice. Well done, Miss Sampson. Ice hockey. Good answer. Right, number 9.
All right, we're gonna need to wrap this up.
We are. Okay, Commonwealth Games is in Birmingham, but which country is going to host a shooting and archery event?
Which country? Commonwealth Games.
It's a hard one.
France.
Okay. Did you say France?
I did.
Is France in the Commonwealth?
Yes.
Just double checking. Number 10. Miss O, you're on.
I've now lost the plot to live.
Muhammad Ali and Rumble in the Jungle. Oh gosh, these are not very female-orientated questions for International Women's Day.
Quite right.
George Foreman.
Okay, right. We're going to get the scores on the doors here.
Yeah,
we're going to get the scores on the doors. So, question number 1, Miss Sampson, you said 7. What was the answer?
That one.
Was the answer 5?
Right, so it was 6 points for a touchdown.
I knew it wasn't the same as rugby union.
Mr. O, he's got 2 Wimbledon titles.
Oh.
It was Man City, Mrs. Appleton, so a good point for you. Spain and Turkey were beaten to Olympics by Japan, so that wasn't anything for you, Miss O. We had lots of options for number 5. The Sirens, the Storm, the Dragons, the Thunder. So nothing there. And it was Los Angeles for the Olympics. Miss O, you were right about tennis in the Passover. Miss Sampson, you did very well to get ice hockey for the Stanley Cup.
With a bit of help.
India is actually hosting the Commonwealth Games shooting and archery. And George Foreman, you're correct.
Good
that
answer,
leads the
too.
score
Good answer.
on that final round.
We don't need to know the final score.
The score is
We don't need to know that.
the score is that International Women's Day is the winner. And we had a very good quiz. Thank you so much, both of you. Miss O, thank you so much to you for taking up your lunchtime with your young guns in the prep school for joining us as well.
Still lining up outside because I should have picked them up 4 minutes ago. So I'm going to say
thank you. And Miss Sampson, thank you. That was an absolutely brilliant quiz. Thank you for coming.
Thanks very much, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you. Okay, so to finish us off today, we have 2 quick things left. I think we've got Finn Cunningham, who is with us, who can jump onto screen. So, Finn, I just want to quickly pick up as we wrap up the show about the unbelievable efforts you went to during the lockdown period. And there were some people who have done absolutely outstanding things as a period of being at home. But you really went for it in terms of the My Name's Doddy Foundation. Before we talk about what your final achievement was, just talk to me about this charity and why you were so keen to try and raise the profile of it.
Yeah, so the charity was started by Dolly Weir, who was a former Scotland international for rugby, and he got diagnosed with MND a few years ago. And MND is a disease that slowly prevents your cells from working, and it eventually leads to death. And when you're diagnosed, you normally have less than 2 years to live. And so, because we weren't able to do much rugby this year, we thought the best way to stay fit was to do a fitness. So our whole rugby team, we thought we'd try and run 500 miles and raise £1,000 for MND. And as in the end, I think as a collective, we'd raised over 4,000 and ran over 2,000 miles.
That's absolutely amazing, and I think that for such an incredible charity and such a worthwhile cause to do that. Now, what is your background and experience with running? Are you a keen runner? Is it something you've done a lot of, or not so much?
I think I didn't really do much running. I started running the first lockdown for the Division Strava, and then sort of stopped again once school started. But I thought I'd try picking it up again in lockdown. But no, apart from that, not much running.
So that makes actually your achievement that we'll come on to talk about even more impressive. So Finn ran a marathon in aid of the My Name's Doddy Foundation, which is an absolutely outstanding achievement. What time was it, Finn? That's the question everybody always asks when it comes to races. How long was your marathon effort?
It was 3 hours and 41 minutes.
So quick, very, very quick for anyone who's running. That is a very quick pace per kilometre. Had you ever done anything like that before? Anything of such a big distance?
I ran a 3/4 marathon back in the first lockdown, but it's really those last 10 miles. They're just brutal. Like it was, God, it was horrific. It was going pretty well for the majority, and then I think the last 10 miles it was uphill from Cramond into town, and I was just gone.
Oh, so a bad route. A bad route you've gone for here.
Bad planning, yeah.
And what do you think? Have you got the bug? Would you do it again, or is that very much ticked off the list? Oh, really?
There'd have to be a very good reason for me to run another one.
Well, I think the reason you did it for this time is an absolutely incredible achievement, and I think you and the rest of the boys who took part and raised so much money for such a worthwhile charity deserve a really big pat on the back. So thank you so much for coming on to chat to us about that and to kind of talk us through. I certainly won't be planning to do a marathon anytime soon. If you've told me that the last 10 miles are brutal, just running 10 miles would be brutal for me these days. So thank you very much and well done.
No worries. Thank you very much.
And then just to finish us off today, because we've been busy and everyone needs to get back to class pretty soon, we're very fortunate to again have our sports report from Richie Gardner, who has been digesting and debriefing the last week of sport.
Welcome to Sports Select with me, Richie Gardner. This week we start with athletics, where Mo Farah opened his 2021 season with a win at the Djibouti Half Marathon in a very respectable time. At the European Indoor Championships, Great Britain finished third in the medal table with 2 gold medals. The first came with Emil Eloise Markov in the 3,000 metres, and the second came with 19-year-old Keely Hodgkinson in the women's 800 metres. In football, Stephen Gerrard's Rangers denied Celtic to their 10th straight Scottish Premiership title with their 3-0 win over St Mirren on Saturday. They are now 20 points clear at the top of the table with 6 games to play. In cricket, England's women thrashed New Zealand to a complete clean sweep of wins in their 3-match 2020 series. In cycling, Matthew van der Poel won Strada Bianca with a display of pure power on the final climb up to Piazza del Campo in Siena. He managed to displace of world champion Julian Alaphilippe and former Tour de France champion Egan Bernal. In tennis, the Qatar Open was won by Petra Kvitova, who won in straight sets over Garbin Muguruza. And Andy Murray won his first round match at Rotterdam, but was subsequently knocked out in round 2 by Andrei Rublev. And finally, in golf, Bryson DeChambeau leads the Arnold Palmer Invitational at the time of recording. DeChambeau blew everyone away with his amazing tee shot, 370 yards, directly over the water, which everybody else was going around. And that's all this week. I'll see you all again next week. Thank you.
And thank you to Richie for such an excellent report once again. Now, thank you to everyone who has joined us today for being guests of today's show. I hope to welcome you back on Wednesday when we have our EFFER team back on to launch, not to launch, but to do their second episode of EA Today, which was such a rousing success last week. Please join us on Wednesday. And lastly, do not miss out on the opportunity to get involved with the Division Scavenger Hunt this afternoon, live on EATV at 4 o'clock. But for now, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.